Welcome to the Sunshine Parenting Podcast. My name is Audrey Monkey, and I am your host. For more than 3 decades, I've been a summer camp director, and I've had the privilege of working with thousands of children, teenagers, young adult counselors, and parents. I really enjoy sharing stories, tips, and ideas to help others who care about young people raise a generation of kind, self-reliant, optimistic kids who become thriving adults. If you're interested in summer camp, parenting, or happiness, you've come to the right place. Back in 2017, my friend Kathleen Buckstaff told me about Shasta Nelson and her website, girlfriendcircles.com. I checked it out and subsequently ordered both of Shasta's books, which are Frientimacy, How to Deepen Friendships for Lifelong Health and Happiness, and Friendships Don't Just Happen, the guide to creating a meaningful circle of girlfriends. I was so excited that I happened to hear Shasta speak back in January of this year and was able to interview her for the podcast at her apartment in San Francisco. So for episode 40, I am thrilled to be welcoming Shasta Nelson. She's a leading expert on friendship and just an amazing speaker who, if you have the chance to go and see in person, I highly recommend. A quick note about this episode. After about 3 minutes, I accidentally turned off our recording right in the middle of when we were laughing. So there's kind of an abrupt cut in the interview, but don't worry, you didn't miss anything. It's just a little restart. Shasta, I'm so happy to be with you here today.
Likewise.
Shasta, why don't we start, just introduce yourself.
Okay, so my name is Shasta, and I am all things friendship. So I do a ton of speaking, and I love writing books and teaching classes and just helping us all remember how important the relationships are in our lives.
Which is why I found you. Actually, a friend of mine said, have you seen this person's work? And she sent me to your website probably about a year ago.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes. So a friend of mine, Kathleen, actually. So first of all, tell the name of your website and what you do there.
Okay, so ShastaNelson.com is where you'd go to find all the Shasta stuff. But then one of my favorite things is called Girlfriend Circles. That's Girlfriend Circles with an S on the end. And that's like a tribe for women who value making new friends and wanting to learn how to deepen their friendships. And so we have thousands of members from all over the world on there, so people can meet other people local to them, and I teach classes through there, do Q&As, and you can kind of ask for advice from everybody else. So it's a great way to just support each other as we're all building friendships, because it's actually far more common than most of us think. We tend to think we're the only person in the world that needs friends, and yet I can get into that. The research around the loneliness is staggering, and in fact, another huge report came out last week. It was massive. It was one of the biggest ones studied, and about 1 in 2 of us is reporting some pretty chronic loneliness. Mm-hmm. So we're talking about an issue that is not rare, and it's not just those hermits and those recluses and those socially awkward people. We have the stigma that it's like those people who have no friends. And the truth is, most of us aren't lonely because we don't know enough people. Most of us are lonely because we don't feel known by a few. And so it's not for lack of interaction. It's for lack of intimacy. So loneliness doesn't just mean not having people. It means not having the right people in the right way.
Mm-hmm. Well, that really resonated with me. And I think, especially when I'm working with kids and adolescents, and we have this huge rise in anxiety and depression among our adolescents.
Yeah, huge.
And a lot of it's being associated with, they're too much on screens, not enough face-to-face. But I think it all comes down to the same thing that adults are feeling. It's this loneliness in a crowd, but you just don't feel known or heard or seen for yourself.
Totally. And in fact, the big study last week says that young people are highest at risk on the loneliness scale. So we used to always think it was a when you're elderly issue. And the truth of the matter is we've got kids who are in school all day long and interacting all day long on their phones, and the loneliness is just skyrocketing highest in that age group, which is opposite how it used to be. Because as kids, it used to be that we got the most relationship time, and that it was hard to ever make that up the rest of our lives. We used to be interacting so much more and getting those friendships. So it's sad to see that change happening.
Yeah, because it was like you go to school every single day. So you'd
Yeah.
see your friends every single day, have recess, lunch.
Yeah.
It's the most regular time
Yeah.
of friendship.
Totally.
But now other things are interfering
Yep.
with that connection, even though they might be there
Yep,
together.
totally.
So in January is where I met you for the first time. We were at the 1440 Multiversity,
Yep.
and you were doing a weekend training there. And
Yep.
what was that training? What was it about?
So I'm doing another one in September, Labor Day weekend there, and that one's all on friendship, like all thing friendship for anybody who wants to like help be a gatherer, connector, creator of relationships in this world. That would be Labor Day weekend there. And the next January, every January I do that one's a women's retreat, and that's more of like how to hear where you're being guided for the upcoming year. So that'll be next January there again.
Okay, fine. Well, we'll put links
Yeah,
to
that'd
all
be
of these
awesome.
things in the show notes so
Awesome.
that people
I hope you're there at Labor Day weekend if it works out. I was
that's
thinking
good
about
for my
you.
schedule. Yes,
Good.
it is.
I know. I was thinking. I know she's busy all summer.
So for sure that Labor Day weekend could be really fun, and I'm looking forward to seeing all the information on that, and I'll put links to it
Awesome.
so that people can see that. So when I was there, I was actually there for a different training. It was on leadership, and you were there that weekend, and I didn't even know until I got there, but I had heard about you and seen your website.
I didn't even know that.
And I was so excited. I was fangirling in my group.
It was nice to meet you. I remember that.
And and you gave a talk that was open to everybody there on the Saturday evening of that weekend. And all of us in our group, we were all from camp, and we were there working on leadership things. But, at camp, just the most important thing is that we're helping kids develop relationships
Love that.
and friendships at
Love
camp.
that.
And your talk very much resonated with me. It was about your book, Frientimacy. So why don't you start by just explaining, this is your new word that
Yes,
you
yes.
invented. What is Frientimacy?
I had to invent it because every time I kept saying, we need more intimacy in our lives outside of romance, everybody just equates intimacy with sex. And I kept being like, no. So Frientimacy is an acknowledgement that we all need far more deeper relationships in our lives. And I define that as, so the highest level of Frientimacy is any relationship between any two people where they both feel seen in a safe and satisfying way. And so what we're looking at is really that wanting to be seen piece matters so much. And so obviously in all of our relationships in our lives do that to some degree. So, if I'm at work, there's people that see me and see the projects I'm working on. And sometimes they see those things that my best friends don't see. Like my best friends may not see how we show up at work or how powerful we are in a meeting. And so, there's all these different pieces of us that want to be seen. And the deeper our frientimacy is with somebody, the more that person is seeing us in a variety of different ways and like seeing more of us. And so, I'm a big proponent of all levels of being seen. I think it's completely appropriate that not every single person needs to see every single thing of us, but knowing the right places. But wherever we go, if we're at, if we're at church, we want people to see us in that space. Like everywhere we go, at work, at our kids' school, and association meetings, we want to feel seen. And so what that word means can change based on the context and how long we've known somebody. But what we're looking for is really feeling like somebody, they noticed us, they saw something about us, they acknowledged us, they recognized us. And that's really what almost all of us are walking through this world looking for. And to have a few people that can do that on a consistent basis is so important. So when we're talking about loneliness, that really is what most of us are craving. We're craving those few people who really know us and love us no matter what. And unfortunately, most of us are just interacting more and networking and all that kind of stuff, which is fabulous for other purposes, but doesn't necessarily automatically lead to us feeling seen.
Right. I think in the intro of this book, you give an example of how even sometimes with good friends, you can maybe be reaching out and asking questions and kind of finding out more about them.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel that great if they don't reciprocate.
Exactly.
So, I've always been a big proponent of sort of organized sharing.
Yep.
And I know you do
I
the
am
same
too.
thing. And we do this at camp because if everybody knows that the role, everybody's going to have a chance to share on whatever topic it is. And there's somebody making sure that everybody's doing that and staying on track. That leads to frientimacy or better intimacy, because if you leave one or two people out and they don't get a chance to share what's been going on in their life, they leave whatever event that's been, whether it's a lunch with the girls or whatever, just feeling, like you said, not really valued or seen. And that's so sad. But unless we're pretty intentional, it can easily happen. Because you can kind of get caught up. And I think you and I are the kind of people who tend to organize the
asking and the initiating.
And the initiating. And so oftentimes we're the people who maybe would get left off if there isn't another person like us in the group to say. And it was funny when you were talking about just the different realms and where you're being seen and all that. It made me think about, and I don't know if you feel this way too, but even when you're in a different place, you sort of want people to know you.
Totally.
Do you know what I mean? So like if you're at church, it's nice for people to know what your work is or your family. And same, and if you're at work, you know, what are your hobbies? It goes a long way to workplace relationships when you take the time to get to know people outside of work too.
My next book is actually on workplace relationships.
Oh, great. Okay,
because
great.
I'm like, yes. Like we need, because we can't, this is not a personal life issue. This is a human life issue. And I'm so tired of it being put in the personal life bucket where, you know, where most people don't even feel like they've spent enough time with their spouses and their kids and exercise and you name all these other things. And it's no wonder that friendships, we're like, we don't have time for that. And yet we spend, 8-9 hours of our life every day with a whole bunch of people that is still the number one place for making friends, but we're not doing it with intention and with healthy expectations and with permission always to actually be really fostering those. But what you're saying really matters. And it's learning how to share what pieces of us in appropriate ways with the right people. But ultimately, as we build relationships, we should be sharing more of who we are in a more holistic way because we're not just any one thing. And so that becomes problematic. And I've been, one of my favorite sharing questions with my friends even is we just do almost every time most of my girlfriends and I are together, it's usually like, okay, let's go around and everyone share a highlight and a low light from their life. Because for that very purpose, and I used to ask so many questions that I started realizing that wasn't even always helpful because there's no way any one of us can know what's the right question to ask, the thing that most needs to be seen in your life right now. You could leave and be like, but nobody even asked me about like this big project I'm working on. And they asked about the vacation and the kids and like the job. And so you realize, wow, that's the part I wanted to share and have witnessed. And so really, I think it's on us to all of us, like hold the space for each person to get to share. But then also it's on each of us to say what most wants to be shared right now, like what wants to be witnessed right now, because I can't leave it up to somebody else to like go through 20 questions and hopefully land on the right question, so.
Right. And hopefully you're close enough. If you're with someone that you want to share with, you need to be able to say, I really want to share this with you, or I really need to ask you about something, or whatever it is. Like you need to feel like you can say that rather than leave the conversation saying, oh, no one ever checked on me. About this.
And the story in the book that I share with is that, I asked everyone else a sharing question and then there wasn't time for me to share and they forgot. And I left feeling kind of mad at them and hurt and really took on the responsibility of saying, you know what? I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, had I just been like, oh wait, I haven't shared yet. Like all my girlfriends would have been like, oh, like, oh, you're right. And I took it. So I turned it into this big, like, how dare they? They're so bad. And like, I need better friends. And really at the end of the day, I was like, that was on me. Like I could have shown up and said, wait, I haven't shared yet. And I know they would have been wanting to hear that. So it'd be one thing if I kept trying to share and they kept being like, no, we don't want to hear from you. But like, I'm the one who created not feeling seen because I was waiting for them to ask me instead of just offering.
That's one of the concepts with kids and teens that we teach a lot is just don't victimize yourself, whatever it is. If someone's not kind to you or dismisses you or whatever, don't take it so personally.
Exactly.
Find some other people who are being more kind, whatever. But just instead of just making it all about
we're so
people are against me and everything else, go find people who are open to you, who you can say that to, like, hey, I have something to share and we'll celebrate with you your fun things and all that. So one thing, as I was sitting at your talk, first of all, I know that you started working with sort of women's friendships and now you've realized that these same concepts are for everybody. And one of them, which I think is 100% works for kids, men, women, all ages, is your triangle that you did such a good job in your talk explaining. But why don't you talk about that, and then I'll put a picture of it on the post so people can see it if they want to look at it. But you call it the Frientimacy triangle. So talk about how that works.
So when we look at what bonds any two people together, when we look at the science of what makes for a healthy team, when we look how to evaluate a healthy marriage, what makes somebody a best friend, there's three things that come up over and over and over that are the three requirements of every healthy relationship. And I can pretty much guarantee everybody that any relationship in your life that's not feeling good, it's because at least one of these three is lacking. So we can look and say, we can basically assess the health of a relationship based on how present these three things are. So at the bottom of the triangle is positivity. Positivity is basically a feeling good. So we know from science that we have to have 5 good feelings in any relationship for every negative feeling. I do love that there is a negative feeling in it. The ratio is 5 to 1. So it's unrealistic to think everything should always feel good, but we do need more good feelings. Good feelings come from laughter, acts of kindness, being able to have moments of awe together, so accomplishing something together, going on a hike, looking at a beautiful thing, taking photos together, feel a gratitude, affirmation. So all of those things leave us feeling good. So friendship has to have a lot of that. Then as you move, that's where all relationships start, is at the bottom of the triangle with positivity. And then the 2 arms going up the triangle, the first one on the left side is consistency. And consistency is it's the hours logged. It's the history that we've built. It's the time we're spending together. It's the repetition, the regularity. And so this is where we end up seeing each other over and over and over. And this is ultimately what creates safety in a relationship. This is what builds trust. The more I've hung out with you and you cheer when I share something exciting, the more I create a pattern of like, she does this when I do this. And so therefore, if ever you don't do it, I'm like, that's the anomaly. Like we build a pattern of what we can expect from somebody. This is where trust gets built. And then the third requirement is vulnerability. And vulnerability is stories shared. It's the way we reveal ourselves, the way we're letting somebody see more of us. It's the talking about the different topics. It's the going deeper sometimes. It's sharing our future, our past. And so doing all of that in appropriate ways with in the right way. And so those 3 things. So if you only have any 2 of them, if you have consistency and positivity, so you're having fun together and you do it regularly, that's what we'd call like a social group, but you won't feel seen if you don't ultimately do some of the vulnerability. You can have vulnerability and consistency, somebody you talk to regularly and you're sharing really deep stuff and hearing all the drama and, all this kind of stuff and doing it regularly. But if you're either one of you or both of you is getting off the phone exhausted, weary, overwhelmed, tired, not a healthy friendship. And the same as you can have vulnerability and positivity where you and I get together once, we feel seen, we show up, we are authentic, and so it feels good. And if we never do it again, we're not building a friendship. Right. So we look at all 3 of those things, and every relationship starts on the bottom of the triangle and slowly, incrementally moves up that triangle. So as our consistency arm increases, so should our vulnerability. And those 2 should match, they should be growing at around a similar rate. So a lot of us either overshare and think that just if we just vomit my whole life story on you,
we'll be so close. All of a sudden
exactly.
We'll be like best friends.
I'll feel so close to you.
Right.
And yet you don't have the consistency or the commitment or that arm of the triangle that like has the support for that kind of sharing. And the flip side is true too. If we're building consistency and spending a lot more time with each other, but still not sharing ourselves, the relationship will never grow up the triangle either. So we want to do those mindfully. And at the top of the triangle is the people we are most consistent, most vulnerable with. These are the people that we've built a ton of history and they know as much of us as possible. So you can see quickly that only a few people, like the top of the triangle is kind of skinny up there. It's a point, and there's not going to be that many people that we're going to have that ability to do in our lives. But so the vast majority of our relationships will be somewhere else down that triangle. And I think the 2 most important helpful things around that is just realizing that when most of us are lonely and wanting friends, what we want is the top of the triangle, but we can't just go and like audition people and be like, hey, I have an opening at the top of my triangle. Will you be in there? And she looks fabulous. And then have this expectation that you should be acting like that. So we have to realize that every relationship starts at the bottom and has to practice these 3 things. So it has actually less to do with how much we have in common with somebody. It actually has less to do with how much chemistry we have. There's so many other factors that we think matter. And actually at the end of the day, those factors only matter if they help us do positivity, consistency, and vulnerability. And that's what builds a relationship. Right. And then the other thing I'll just say on that is that by then understanding this, we have healthy expectations for relationships up and down that triangle. So I think this is where I run into just so many people who are so hurt and so upset at their friends and just feel betrayed and use this language of just really disappointing people. And often what happens is they looked and they're lonely, or, we all have some loneliness. And it's easy for us to look and say, who do I feel closest to? And that might be people that are only in the middle of the triangle. And our brain then thinks these are my best friends because these are the people I feel closest to. But we actually aren't at the top of the triangle. Like if I were to come in and measure what those 2 people are doing, I would not say they've been that consistent, that vulnerable, and that positive to warrant being at the top of the triangle. But then they're mad at their friends for not acting like top of the triangle friends when really they're so creating healthy expectations for what friendship we have developed, not what friendship we want it to be or hoped for it to be, but actually saying this is where we're at right now. So you and I, we've met each other. You know, we're on the bottom of the triangle. It doesn't. It's not an insult. It's not a negative thing. It's not like we couldn't become best friends or anything. But I think we just all have to realize there's things that have to be developed. There's a structure there.
And that's interesting too when you think about kids, how they so badly want like a best friend.
Yeah, we just want to be named that, like as though somebody can bequeath it on us, as opposed to it needing to be developed. Yeah.
So talk about, as you were talking, I think this is really true, and I think that we live in a time where people are obviously kind of oversharing sometimes in very public ways, and think that that's somehow going to draw people to them because they'll get response, especially if they share something really sad or dramatic.
It's our hunger to be seen. We're not getting it in the relationship.
And so then we do it in the wrong. So that vulnerability, like too much vulnerability with the wrong people doesn't work. What about like the reciprocity of this? Do you know what I mean? Like say you're, I think it was you who said, and I really like this too, that you can't expect that your friend is going to call you as often as you call your friend. Like maybe you're better at calling and setting things up. You're more organized with your calendar. Maybe they're more of a spontaneous person. So when you were talking about that, that really struck me. I've never really been the kind of person like waiting or kind of tennis player, like keeping track. But I think that's important for people to know. Someone can be a very good friend, but maybe they're not the one who's going to be initiating that consistency. So maybe if you have someone, you have the positivity, and you know that, you know, when you are together, there's a great level of vulnerability, then you have to sort of be okay with you initiating.
Totally.
Because I think when you said that, I think that's good, because I think a lot of people will give up on a friend.
All the time.
Because they'll say, well, I called her for coffee.
All the time.
And she never called me back.
Exactly. We get our feelings so hurt, and it's like, I think about my husband and I doing, you know, we have a equal house chore around our house. And I think about that doesn't mean he vacuums half the rug and then leaves the vacuum cleaner at that line and then I have to vacuum the other half or else I'm a horrible, like he knows that I'm like making food and like we both don't have to do the exact chores of our relationship to have an equal relationship. And I'm really a big fan of saying everybody's got different strengths. Everybody has different comfort levels. Not everybody's an initiator. And that's not to let some people off the hook and say you shouldn't sometimes put yourself out of your comfort zone and do that. What is to say that we've done so much damage equating the initiating as to whether somebody likes us. And I think it speaks to our fear of being rejected. And our greatest fear is that if I initiate and you're not, that somehow means I like you more than you like me and that I'm being rejected. And that's just simply not the case. And I think I like the way you said it so well. And that is, if they're actually saying yes more often than not, or saying, oh my goodness, I would love to do it, but I can't. And you get together and you have vulnerability, you have positivity, and you're doing it, then it doesn't matter who initiated it. At the end of the day, you're doing these three things, and that's what matters, and that's what builds a relationship. And I can look at a lot of, I mean, actually even I would say I'm an initiator, but I would look at some friends, I just wasn't in the space where I was really looking for new friends. It wasn't as I had other relationships I was fostering, and yet I can think of one friend who just kept initiating, and it wasn't that I didn't want to do stuff with her, but it was that I wasn't necessarily going back and forth and initiating back because she wasn't one of the people toward the top of my triangle. But she single-handedly kind of built our relationship. And I say to her all the time, like, I'm so glad you kept initiating because it had nothing to do with me not liking her. You know, so I think there's just so many times where we need to say, at the end of the day, what we're not measuring is who's initiating these three things. What we are measuring is, are these three things happening? And that's more important. So even the vulnerability thing, I mean, I might be somebody who's a little more comfortable being vulnerable to help hold that space, and it might take somebody else a little bit longer, but that doesn't mean they're a bad friend. It just means we all at some point need to be doing these three things. I also love something that you shared. I remember everything from the talk. That vulnerability, I think in recent years, has been equated with negative things, like telling your deepest, darkest secrets. And I really liked that a big part of vulnerability is sharing like your dreams, and the positive things. Completely. So that really resonated with me too, because when I'm thinking about kids at camp, like oftentimes it's really not appropriate for the conversation around the campfire to be about, you know, the parents' divorce and, you know, somebody at their school who died, or, you know, just these things that are so sad. And of course, those need to be shared with a trusted adult or a really good friend, but not really in like a group kind of vulnerability setting. But in a setting like that, when kids share together
wow, if 5 years from now I could be doing this, or I have this dream about that. That's a real vulnerability too.
Totally. Or what are you most proud of yourself from this last school year? Where did you grow? What have you learned? So when I interview most people, I ask them, is it actually harder? I have them share a highlight and a low light. And then I ask, how many people was it harder for you to share your highlight? And without fail, that one is harder, especially for women. Yes. We're much more comfortable sharing like the one little piece about our marriage that's not feeling good than like the piece that's like where we're so amazed and feeling good. Like we somehow think that if we want to be relatable, and so we think that means complaining and whining and venting and kind of degrading ourselves a little. And that bigger act of vulnerability is like my friends, like to be able to say where I shined and not have to underplay that. Like if I can't show up with my friends and own where I'm amazing, then what chance do I have of doing it out in the world where we need women who are stronger, who are showing up, who are shining, who aren't afraid of their bigness. And like my friendships are where I practice that. And I think we ultimately absolutely need to be doing that. And I think about like workplace friendships. People are like, oh, we don't need vulnerability in the workplace like that. Because everyone equates it with drama and like
sharing
and like
about
shame.
Your relationships or whatever.
So they picture us all like crying in the lunchroom about breakups. And I'm like, oh, really? And I was like, so do you want people to be able to tell you, ask for help if they don't know what they're supposed to be doing? Like that takes vulnerability. Do you want your employees to feel safe brainstorming? Because that takes vulnerability. Do you want your employees to be honest with you why they're calling in sick and needing some time off? Because that takes vulnerability. Like, actually you really need vulnerability in the workplace. And so it is very important for us to remind ourselves that vulnerability does not mean shame and insecurities and only that. It means being willing to be honest and be seen. Yeah.
Do you know the name of your book yet? This is going to be a great
Oh my gosh, I'm so fun. It's funny you asked me that because I'm just working with my agent. We're like have a whole list of names.
Okay. But it's going to be about kind of friendship or frientimacy in the workplace.
Yes,
sort of.
because it's so needed, but nobody in the workplace is Googling being like, wait, we need to talk about friendship in here. I'm like, but you do, because social media is consistency, vulnerability, positivity. Like anytime you want to build a relationship with public, with shareholders, with your customers, it's all relationship.
Right. Oh, I love that. I'm excited for that book too.
Oh,
that's so good. It reminds me a lot. I think I think a lot about culture and the culture of a place. Most businesses, like especially mine, that's just all about people, really they're based on love and relationship. Any good culture, any good work relationship or family or anything. And so if you're spending most of your time somewhere, you want to be in a place where you are seen and heard and valued and known. And if you're not going to be happy working there, and you're not going to do a very good job either. So it really behooves companies to create a culture where people do feel like they're friends with each other and feel like they're excited to see each other in the morning, and someone will ask them what the highlight of their week was or, something like that.
Yeah, so the research bears that out. I mean, it's like, so we talk about a job description and pay being the things that we're looking for, but when we actually are studied, it's actually, we will leave a dream job if we hate who we work with, and we will stay at a job that's like not our dream title or job description if we just love the people. Right. And we're way more engaged. We're less likely to call in sick. I mean, absolutely. Having friends at work benefits the employee's engagement. It benefits the company. It's right. I'm speaking to the choir. Like, we just need healthy friendships everywhere.
I know. Seriously. Okay. So the last thing, I know we could go on forever. We might have to do another one when your next book comes out. But another thing so this is just me, and I don't know if you feel the same way too, but I've always been a person where I really enjoy my friendships, like one-on-one friendships. I have some close friends that I hang out with. I've never been a big women group kind of person. And because I feel like oftentimes when it's like a group of women talking, it sort of devolves into gossiping about other people, or, oh, did you hear this? And so I always think about it like when my kids were little and drop off at school, I was always friendly with everybody, but I never tried to join in the group thing. And when you talk about that positivity, I feel like, isn't that have to do too, like with what you talk about and kind of how with that person, if they are, being positive in a way that they're talking about someone else, they're sharing something positive. I feel like that is a part of a good relationship too. I feel like if someone gossips to me about like a mutual friend, my first thought is, I don't really feel like I have this as much of a bond with this person because I don't want to talk about that person. And
what are you saying about me?
Exactly. No, that positivity, that's why it's a foundation of a friendship, because you start eroding that with gossip, complaining, whining, even just kind of like one-upping, competing, all that kind of stuff. It erodes a friendship. And I do think the science is changing. The research is showing. I do think that women especially I really am encouraged to see more and more women being willing to be supportive, being willing to like really lift each other up and stop kind of trying to keep holding this stereotype of this competitiveness that we have with each other. I do think we're learning how to do relationships better, and I want to believe that we are seeing the value. I mean, it's kind of swung where romance was like the only thing that gave us value in life. Like if I'm chosen, then I'm okay. And then being a mom, like those relationships of like our kids and our spouses were like everything for a long time. That's kind of been the focus. And I see a shift happening a little bit with us getting married later, with us going through divorces. We're starting to say, I mean, we're seeing science now, research showing that a lot of women, when they're becoming widows, are not remarrying. They're actually just banding together and creating like living together. And so we're starting to see that we can build our intimacy in our community, and it can include men and our children and our spouses, but it doesn't have to, and that's not our whole worth and value. So I do love that we can hopefully be gentle with each other, keep training each other, keep trying to create that better space. But and modeling it to our kids. Like, I don't know if we have any more time, but I just will say this on the kid thing. I've asked so many. I used to do a workshop where I would ask women to brainstorm their memories of their parents, their moms primarily, and who their friendships were, what memories do they have of these are grown women. Right. What memories do you have of your mom doing stuff with her friends? Like, what do you remember about her friendships? What was modeled? And I would guess, Audrey, like 70% of the women in the room had a really hard time saying like, I'm sure my mom had friends, but like I don't actually remember. Like and I always be like, did they go away for weekends? Did she go out in the evenings? And people were just like, no. I mean, she talked to her sister on the phone, but like they actually had a hard time remembering anything. Wow. And I would like to give those women the benefit of the doubt and assume most of them did have friends. Right. But I think one of the disservices we do is thinking that we need to kind of do our friendship while our kids are at school and where it's not intruding in their life. And by us doing that, we are actually not modeling friendship. We're not talking about it. So I really challenge women to say, could your kids 10 years from now name your friends? Could they say, oh yeah, my mom went every year on girls' weekend, and my mom went out in the evenings, and my mom, she said, good luck with the homework. You saw your friends at school today. Now mommy's going to go out with her friends. And and I have one woman who said to me, when I go out with my friends, I tell my kids it's a work thing because somehow that feels like more substantial, like they can't be mad at me or something like that. And I'm just like, no, we've got to be saying we have to be people and men for our boys. This is even more important. Our fathers have to be doing this. So I think I just love that you've got all these parents, all these people who are passionate about kids, and for us to be talking about it with them in healthy terms, for us to be modeling it. It's just, this is the next generation of like, let's do friendship healthier. Right.
And kids right now, they're like the slowest to grow up. They don't want to grow up because they see adults as being unhappy and overworked and overwhelmed and stressed. Well. And so when you were talking, I was thinking that's the other reason to model. Well, first of all, it makes you happier to be with your friends and to spend that time. I think that goes in all areas of life. I've been a big proponent of that. I just feel like for my kids to grow up into flourishing adults, they need to see what that looks like.
Yes, I love that.
If we don't model for them what it looks like, then, and just doing stuff we love and, that all of that.
Yeah.
So,
and have them look forward to like, when you're grown up, you can go away for a weekend with your friends too,
and you don't have to do homework at night.
I know. There's a great life up there.
Go out with your friends instead of doing homework.
Yeah.
That's so good.
So really, really important.
Yes. Well, Shasta, this has been so much fun. And I definitely want to do this again. And it's actually been fun. We are in person at your apartment, which is really great to get to just meet you in person. And thank you so much for being on the podcast. And I will be following you, and we'll get together again with your next book.
Awesome. And thanks for being such a proponent of healthy relationships. I love it. Love it. Love it. You're doing good work.
Thank you.
I so enjoyed connecting with Shasta in person for our interview, and I look forward to staying connected with her and the wonderful work she's doing around friendships. I look forward to her newest book about friendships in the workplace once that's available. In the meantime, you can find out all about what Shasta's doing by visiting my website at sunshine-parenting.com and search for episode 40. I've put links and information about the different things we discussed, in addition to the picture of the Frientimacy triangle we talked about. I'll leave you with words from Shasta's book, Frientimacy. No therapy, meditation practice, or journaling regimen can provide the place to practice building the emotional muscles of our best selves. Only the people in our lives can gift us with that space. And as we embody more of those qualities and feel greater support and cheering from those who know us well, we can rise up and make the contribution to this planet each of us is meant to make.